Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on wherever you're at. But I guess it's afternoon for most of us. So, well, welcome to the call. Today, we have a great friend. As you know, Next Level by Association is really about the conversation and about the people that we associate with. And I've been very, very blessed to have this gentleman in my life for several years now. Somebody who I consider a mentor, somebody I consider a colleague, somebody I consider a friend. You guys are going to pick up some great information from this gentleman. Whether you're watching live or whether you're watching recorded, you are going to love this guy. This is a guy that I've gone to church with. I've gone to Tony Robbins events and been there with him. We've shared meals together. We've shared stages together. And I think one of the coolest things is when you can get to know somebody on a different level than just somebody that you picked randomly to interview. It produces a lot of different results. So let me just tell you, G. McNaughton knows his stuff. He worked for Tony Robbins for many, many years, managing their sales teams. He's worked for independently doing his own things. He's written a book called The Sales Edge. This guy is the real deal, and he's somebody that you are going to want to continue to learn from beyond this point. So make sure at the end that you capture the information so that you can go back and learn from him. That being said, Gene, welcome, brother.
Bob, it's so awesome to be here. And I want to remind everybody that it was the video yesterday. You shot that video on one of your pillars. And I was watching that and I'm like, I got to call Bob. And it was so good. He had like 3 minutes of really good educational content. And you know what I love about these things is you never know when you're going to say something or you're going to hear something that radically switches everything. Because a lot of us are in the middle of, we've got decisions to make. We've got the new of being at home and kids at home and family at home. And then there's the restart that's going to take place. There's lots going on.
Right.
So hearing
a lot of moving parts
like yours is fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was great to get that call. And I'm so glad we could make this happen so quick. You know, Gene, you've seen a lot of things in the personal development industry from a lot of different angles. A lot of people get in and they become a speaker, or they do something, and they only see that. You've seen, what's the biggest thing that you think has changed over the years in personal development, from your perspective?
The biggest thing that's changed is the need for being different. In fact, a great phrase I heard, I can't remember who said this phrase, but it's so good, which is different is better than better. And what I mean by that is there's no shortage of people that are relaying the same very important message. The mindset, law of attraction, put your law of attraction in action, go, create the dreams that you have, go build your action list. And that is all so very true. Right. The challenge is so many people are echoing the same message. And I'm not minimizing the importance of the message, but what I've seen is it's harder than ever to stand out. You've got to continue to make yourself relevant. You can't rely on the program or the book you wrote 2 years ago or 5 years ago. And you do that by, what's happening in society, and how do we as teachers and authors and content creators build something that anticipates where challenges or potential missed opportunity is. That's the key. If you can hit that mark, then you're going to get the eyeballs, which means they're going to go into learning more about you, whether it's through YouTube or Insta or Facebook or even LinkedIn if you're business to business. But different is better than better today.
Different is better than better. I like that. One of the coolest things about that is that principle applies to every business universally, doesn't it? That we have to continue to adapt, continue to reinvent, all of those things. So yeah, thanks for saying that. I think that's so true. And I think a lot of times those people that are stuck in an old way, an old behavior, an old thought, really get behind the 8 ball. What do you say to those people that maybe didn't catch the curve and jump on it, or jump on an opportunity when they had the opportunity and now they're feeling behind?
Well, I think we've all been there, right? I mean, I don't want to, it's all of us, right? What is the next opportunity? I mean, it's no secret that after every single recessive period or correction in the market, we're in both right now, that the new norm creates massive success for some people that are willing to adapt and people that are willing to change. And this goes back to the same adage. What do you really want? Now, here's what I love is I heard this. I love this program that John Assaraf is doing, 100 Days to Financial Fitness or Financial Success.
Right.
And he said something that just really got into my psyche. And he said, there is no limit to the how-to of anything. I mean, Twitter, YouTube, and Google,
Like that.
you can say how to do anything. I've never run a day in my life. How do I run a marathon? And there will be a program on there that is for free or very inexpensive that you can buy, and you can follow this program and do it. There's no shortage of the how. Then you'd think, if there's no shortage of the how, then why isn't everybody at what they feel is their full potential, creating whatever they believe success is in all the areas: finance, body, relationship, parenthood, spirituality? Why isn't everybody there? And, it goes back to the mindset conversation. What I've been doing is getting in habits, even when I would rather sit on the couch and eat ice cream or potato chips and watch the news and zone out. Right. I can't say I've never done that, because I have, but I find myself saying, okay, I got to get out and move. I got to move my body. And I'm like, how do I move my body and enjoy the process? By listening to something productive. So I've been using that 45 minutes or an hour to just listen to personal development. But Assaraf said it best. And then I listened to something from Jim Rohn when he said, it's always about the reason. When your reasons get big enough to do something, then the how will show up. I think Jim Rohn said, when your why is clear, the how gets easy. And that sounds a little esoteric and a little Southern California woo-woo. I'm from Iowa, right? I'm proudly from Iowa, so I'm a natural skeptic. But man, if you think back in your life at the times you've done the things that you've been the most proud of, you could stem it back to, there was a moment when the reason got big enough and you said, that's it, I'm going to start, or I'm going to finish, or never again. It's always about reason.
Yeah. Resources versus resourcefulness, right?
Totally.
Yeah. You worked for Tony for a long time, and you really helped him increase his sales, increase his team, get his team in a better position than they were before you got there. What do you think was the key influencer for you to go to work for Tony to begin with?
Oh, that's easy. I bought Personal Power, his first set of cassettes back in the early 90s.
Me too.
And I listened to him. And at first I wasn't a big fan. If you remember the early infomercial days, and it was Tony on a helicopter, Tony in a Mercedes.
Right.
Tony, and I'm in this small town in Iowa where, ours, right? But I got the tapes and I started listening, and I had the very quick realization, this isn't a bunch of motivation hype. There's actual real usable strategies. So what I did, as I was listening to Tony, then I'd listen to Jim Rohn and Zig. Those were the key ones in the early 90s when I was out of college and now, getting a real job. The key was, for whatever fortunate reason, I fell in love with listening. And I started to find myself, when I would listen at night, I would perform better the next day. I was selling computers over the telephone. Wow. And, sales is a numbers game, and, you can be focused and hyperactive, or you can be unfocused and, not be active. And I was around a lot of people that, picked one path or the other. But I learned, the harder I work on myself, the more I work on my skill set of communication, influence, persuasion, leadership, management. I was very fortunate that I went to work for a company that literally exploded, Gateway Computers. Most people, at least 30 years old, can remember that company.
Sure.
And we went from a small little company to over 11 billion in revenue. It's public record. Wow. You can look it up.
11 billion.
And I was there early. And as the company grew, then, more positions opened up for management, leadership, training, running divisions. And I just felt like every time I listened, I got a little, it's like going to the gym for my brain. I got a little bit better and a little bit better. And I'd listen to some things over and over and over again, to the point where, I could literally, recite things that Jim Rohn or Tony or Zig, those were my favorites, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
And it's something that stayed with me ever since I heard that first cassette. And then I got Personal Power too. So when I left Gateway after almost 12 years and I was deciding what I was going to do, I got a call from my financial planner, who was saying, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know.
Can I pause you right there for a second? because I think you mentioned something so powerful.
Okay.
And you and I have run into this before with people that we've coached or worked with, and they go, "Oh yeah, I know that. Oh, I went to that seminar. Oh, I've
Yep.
done." And yet, what you said was you did it over and over and over again. And I think that's such a powerful lesson that it's kind of like bathing, like Zig Ziglar used to say, But it's one of those things that we can't just do something once. And I just wanted to impress upon people that statement that you said, that you did it over and over again. So thanks for saying that, because I think it's something that we miss. We read something and then we go, okay, well, I'm on to the next thing. Maybe we need to
Well,
integrate it better.
I can speak for myself, but I'm guessing that I'm speaking for a lot of people, is that even when I read something that I know is amazing, my eyeballs will keep reading, but my brain drifts.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
something stimulated me and my brain's thinking about it, but in the meantime, I'm still reading. I'm on the next page and the next page, and I
Sure.
really didn't read. There's a Jim Rohn video. It's a 4-hour video, and it's on my phone right now on YouTube. I have watched that same video now, I think, for almost 3 weeks every night.
Wow.
And I watch it till I'm just listening as I'm walking. Yeah. I've got, headsets on or earbuds in,
Right.
and I'm listening to the Jim Rohn voice as I'm just walking and trying to, work out, move my body. Sure. But I know I'm missing probably 75% of it when I'm listening to him. So I go back, and it's just one that resonates with me. And all of you, there's a voice out there. It could be Bob's, and it could be multiple voices. John Assaraf is another one I listen to. Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins. But everybody's got those ones when you hear that voice and you listen to what she says or what he says, and you're going, wow, I resonate with that. Those are the people to dive into, because it connects with you, and then you hear the message again and again and again.
Yeah, love that.
Speaking,
sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
The law of attraction. When I had left Gateway and I went to a startup and it just didn't work, it was a sham, frankly. And I was unemployed. Now, mortgage, 2 car payments, kid, just had all the things stacking up. And my best buddy, who was my financial planner, said, so if you could pick anything, what would you do? And I'm like, I got to go make money. I'm going to get into the mortgage business. So think 2003 when, mortgage people were making gobs of money.
Right.
And he said, I just don't see this lasting. I don't see, and he was right. We hit the crisis in 06, 07.
Yep.
He said, well, why don't you do what you teach? And he goes, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I remember I was driving and I was listening to Personal Power 2, Tony Robbins. And I'd said, I want to go work for Tony Robbins. This is an absolute true story. And I didn't think that much about it. And then he goes, well, you should go do that. I'm like, there was not even, the World Wide Web was just getting going. It wasn't like, email was still fairly new at that time. It wasn't, I could get online and DM somebody at Tony Robbins' company. That was a Thursday. The following Tuesday, I get a call out of the blue onto my mobile phone. I was living in Kansas City, and they said, hey, we got a position. We've had 3 people recommend you. And the lady said, what do you think about moving to California? And I said, no way. I at the time, I'd been to California a couple times. The traffic was brutal when I got there. And I'm like, there's no way I'm living here. It's so busy and fast. And then she said, well, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'll tell you the name of the company. And she said, have you ever heard of Tony Robbins? You got to be kidding me. And that was a Tuesday. And within a week, I had talked to the people that were doing the search at the Robbins Group. And it just so happened to Unleash the Power Within event was in Orlando. And they said, hey, we'd like to have you come down and go to an event. And I'm like, I am there. It went that fast. And Tony interviewed me at the event and hired me on the spot. But it was like, I felt like it was something that I had been preparing for. That's amazing. Most of for 12 years, I'm listening. I'm out doing, we're getting results.
Now, what year was that?
What's that?
What year was that?
That was 2004 is when I went to work for Tony. So 2003 was my last time at Gateway. Then I did that startup that didn't work out. But and he said he wanted to bring somebody on that had big business experience, which I had in building call centers for Gateway, and also somebody that understood his content. And I had listened so many times that when I went into the interview, I was just like, remember back in those days, Bob, and you would try to write out every single interview question and then write out your answers and try to memorize your answers. And I was stressing myself out. And I was like, you know what? screw it. I'm just going to go answer the questions and answer them to the truest of my ability, and we'll see where it goes. I was just grateful to be there. And sure enough, once I lifted all
What
the...
a kick. That's just wild that you would even think that, and then it just appears, right? That's the law of attraction.
It really is.
That's pretty cool.
That was the, I didn't know what the law of attraction was
Right.
at that time. The Secret came out in, I think, 06 or 07, but
Yeah.
it was one of those unexplainable coincidences. And I was this far away on my phone from exiting the call because it was a recruiter.
Right.
And she said those words like sheepishly, "Have you ever heard of Anthony Robbins?" That's what she said. And I'm like, I'm listening to Personal Power too.
Holy cow.
You've got my ear.
That's
and
a kick.
That was the moment that I took the call. I said yes, and everything changed from there. Everything in my life changed.
So that was a defining moment for you.
Yeah, I would say it was a defining moment. And then I always go back and say, did I create that moment? Did I, if you listen to some of these...
question. That's my next question. You had done so much work, right, that prepared you for that moment. I think a lot of times we're just waiting for things to happen. But you had been listening to Personal Power. You'd gone to Personal Power. You'd listened to Personal Power Tour. You were already immersed in wanting to move in that direction, whether you knew what that was going to look like or not. But you had done the work, and I think that's what I see is that's what preps us for those opportunities when it comes up. But if we haven't done the work, then the opportunity sometimes doesn't appear.
It's so true. And, I would add that I was doing the work for the love of the work.
Right.
I didn't think
Which is even better.
1995 that I'm going to learn to be a public speaker so I can be the opening speaker for Tony. I wasn't, my brain wasn't even wrapped around that was even possible.
Yeah.
But I did know I wanted to learn how to get really good at a handful of skill sets, sales, leadership, and then eventually training and speaking.
Yeah. The power of association, because, my company is Next Level by Association, or one of my programs, and the power of association, I met you through Jarek Robbins, and I met you through Wesley Gu.
Yep.
And both of those guys, are just dear friends of mine. Wesley and I spend a lot more time together than Jarek and I have, but both of those guys, the reason I know you is because of the way you influenced them. And I remember Wesley telling me stories about things that you said that made him who, he really is today. And I just think that's really cool that you were in such a position where Tony influences these thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And yet you were in the crux of the thing, and you had such an influence on these people. So as you were building that sales team, what do you think was the key to your success in influencing these people that are, really powerful and dynamic people to begin with? What was the secret for you?
Well, one of the things I learned is that, first of all, I don't have to have every single idea. And there were in that specific sales team we're talking about, there were a lot of stellar, outstanding individual performers, Roberto Monaco and Milton Olave, some of those predecessors of Wes and even Jarek. And I would observe, I had my idea of the roadmap. I would observe what was there. I would observe what was working. I'd find what was missing, what didn't need to happen that was happening, or what could make it even better. And it wasn't just one stroke of a pen and we changed the script and everybody got great. We worked on their skill sets. And I kept my level of expectation very high, because when you've got a lot of highly talented salespeople that are out in the field, they're making good money. You're dealing with mavericks, right? Maverick horses. Everybody's got this new idea. The other thing that I added,
but you kept your expectations high. I love that. Thank you for saying that.
Every event asked these guys was about breaking the record. There's just something about, what is the best that's ever happened? Okay, there's our baseline benchmark, and what do we need to do to make that even better?
Now, how did you get them to, or was it a challenge to get them to adapt to that?
Of course. Well, here's the other thing that I brought that wasn't super prevalent at that company was the need for metrics and measurement. Now, like even when companies come to me today as a consultant, almost, 9 times out of 10, they're coming because they want me to do some level of sales training, management, or leadership. And that's usually my Trojan horse way in to have higher level conversations with decision-making authorities. And I would always say the same thing to them that I'm saying to the audience is it really sales training you want? Well, yeah, we need more sales training. Why do you need that? Well, we're not as good as we could be. Great. Is it sales training you want, or is it growth? And they go, it's growth. Okay, let's talk about growth. And what I let them know is that sales training by itself is not going to solve your problem or make your situation even better. You got to have sales training. Then you got to have metrics and measurements. Once everybody agrees on the best practice, or if they don't agree to the best practice and they're a top performer, right? So I acknowledge the fact that there are people that have their way that works. Now I try to model that. I try to, lean on that too, so we can share best practice. But without measurement, you'll never know if what it is you're teaching is right, if it's working, because at the end of the day, it's how do you move the dial? So one of the first things I put in, and I do this as a consultant, I do this every organization I've run, is metrics around, anywhere from 4 to 6 key performance indicators. What are the most important elements of the sales process itself, from lead to meeting to presentation to proposal to negotiation? What are those core metrics? And it's usually, it varies by company, but some of the same ones: more meetings, more proposals, higher conversion percent, higher average dollars per transaction or sale. But I'd put those metrics in and I'd make it so it's even for everybody. And then we would stack rank them, and then I visibly show the metrics.
Gotcha.
You want to motivate a team of mavericks, stack rank them on something that's fair. And there's always going to be somebody at the top, and there's always going to be somebody at the bottom. And life for people at the bottom becomes very uncomfortable. And you can ask the guys that have worked for me, you don't want to be on the bottom.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially with that group. But I mean, man, I like I said, I know some of those people that you're mentioning, and man, they would not want to be on the bottom. That would be the last position they challenge. But Gene, what's been maybe one of the toughest times in your life that you've had to endure? And then how did you get through that? Because I think a lot of people are looking for ideas on how to get through this.
Well, I think we've all had our version of toughest times, right? And probably for me, it was going through a divorce and moving from, I got really good in my late 30s and my 40s at making good sums of money, right? The exact dollars don't amount, but far more than I ever imagined I would ever make. Sure. And I fell into the trap: bigger house, nicer vehicles, more watches, more nice watches, bigger diamonds, more purses, more shoes. I mean, it can go on and on and on and on. And I found myself in that trap, and I didn't learn how to manage my money really well. I learned how to make money. I didn't learn how to manage the money I made in a effective way, right? Probably the best way for me to put it. And I went from having all this stuff, go through divorce, and find myself in a tiny condo by myself. I'd have my children certain days. And there were a lot of soul-searching moments. I saw a movie called Wall Street, if you remember back to the—
Love that movie. Yeah.
And Gordon Gekko says, when you look into the abyss and you don't see anybody staring back, that means you're in the abyss. And I remember going, that's so true. That's so true. And, it were some low soul-searching points when you're going through huge, challenging emotional experiences. And if you've been through a divorce, you get this: lawyers, their lawyer, your lawyer. And if you're footing the bill for everything and the money's going fast at $3.50 an hour, and you're just watching everything you've worked so hard for go away, and use most of your material things, very difficult time. It hurt your confidence. It hurt my business. Right? I wasn't as motivated every day to go out and do the things I need to do. And I finally got to a point where I had to get to the very, very, very basics. And the first thing I did was write out mantras, something I was going to read every day. I put it on like 4 walls in the hallway in my house, in my condo, put it on my mirror, and I read these. They're called I Can mantras. And I just read them out loud with passion, with enthusiasm. I was all by myself. I could do that. And I don't know how this stuff works. I mean, I can hear a lot of people talk about, all the neuro stuff and the unconscious and energy and all that stuff. But
Right.
things started changing for me when I started doing the same thing that Napoleon Hill talked about almost 100 years ago, which is managing my internal head chatter. I started listening more to Tony. I started going right back to the fundamentals. And it was during that time that I had been dabbling with my book. I was that speaker that every time you spoke, then people go, "Oh my God, you got a book? I want to buy your stuff. That was so good." And I'm like, I was the perpetual, "Oh yeah, I'm working on it. You just wait. It's going to be amazing." And it was that point. I'm at the lowest of lows. My sister gets sick with cancer and dies 90 days later. My mom, who was, I think, heartbroken, ended up dying 60 days after that. So I lost my sister and my mom all during this low point. And a year later, then I lost my dad. So that 18-month period was brutal.
Yeah.
And I just found myself in habits I didn't want to be in. And, I just hit the low. I don't have any other way to describe it, but the abyss.
Yeah.
And that's when I figured I had to get serious. I started reaching out to the people I knew. Bob, you and I connected. Greg Reed is another one that I connected with that,
Sure.
you never know when somebody just needs that voice of encouragement, that person that can say, "You got this, you can do it, go win today. Don't worry about everything else. Just build your list and win the day."
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that took me out of it. And I go back to the reasons.
Yeah.
After my dad passed, he was 89 years old, and I got back from Iowa where I went to the funeral, and it was a very simple process. My reasons got strong enough. I said, I'm going to be selling this book on Amazon on July 16th. This was for 2018.
Love it.
And I committed. And I finally got a big enough reason to re-engage. I'd already paid a company to write my book and publish it and edit it and do all the graphics. I'd already paid for it, and I wasn't even doing the service I paid for. And I called them up and I said, what has to happen for this book not to be done, but it needs to be sold on July 16th. And they built a timeline. I paid more to have a coach and accountability person. And I got serious. And from November 2017 till May, I was every night, everything it took, every deadline that needed to be hit, I hit. And we launched the book, and I was able to take the first copy and put it on my dad's gravestone on his birthday of what would have been his 90th birthday.
Wow. That is a powerful story. And the thing I love most about that is obviously the ending, that you're able to do that with your dad and give that to, lay it on his gravestone. The other thing I really like about that, though, is that something caused you to get serious. And I think a lot of times people are going, well, I keep thinking about, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to start this new relationship. I'm going to start, and they just keep putting it off. And one of the next level pillars that I teach is that fear and procrastination, which are typically the two reasons people give why they don't do something. They're just fearful or they're procrastinating. I say fear and procrastination will always take a backseat to a greater sense of urgency. And you found your urgency. And a lot of times people right now are sitting there going, where's my urgency? I don't know where I'm going to find it. How would you say somebody go and find that urgency for themselves?
Well, only two things drive us, which is pain, or as Tony would say, pleasure. I'd say, something inspiring enough to take you beyond what your normal habits are. It's one of the two things.
Yeah.
All of it, if you think about procrastination, why do we procrastinate is because there are certain things that are uncomfortable, that aren't our natural skill set. The things that are our natural skill set, we can get done like that. No problem.
That's right.
We can knock those things out whatever it is, whatever your natural skill set is. The things that aren't our natural skill set that we can procrastinate on. But eventually, like most of you and me, you get to the point where it's overdue, it's the last minute, it's the deadline, and then you can cram it all in 3 hours. I mean, that's unfortunately how nobody ever taught me how to study in college, and I would be the perpetual stay up all night the night before, knock it all out, and
me too.
pass the test. I didn't say get A's. I said pass the test, right?
Right. Me too.
But it just wasn't now I could find time when I was in college to go work out, to go drink beer with my buddies, to go,
Sure.
work at the shoe store. I could find time to do all that. But what was most important was studying. But ultimately, it's all going to be driven by reason. If you want to get something done, you've got to build strong enough emotional reasons. What's the pain if you don't get it done? And what does that pain look like in 90 days, 120 days, and 6 months? And or what's it going to mean when it is done in 30, 60, 90, 120 days?
Right.
Part of
right.
getting things done is just to check it off the mental checklist. I used to find myself, Bob, I'm laying there at night, I'm tired, and I wake up at midnight realizing that I forgot to send the email or get the report done or send this follow-up, and then the perpetuation of lack of sleep and stress, and it's not, these are not difficult things. It's just that we put them off.
Right.
And it's all reason driven. It's all reasons why.
So true. Then you leave Tony and you go on and you start your own thing. Was there any apprehension in that? I mean, you've got a job, you're doing well, Tony's growing, even continuing to grow, and you're going to walk out, you're going to exit. What was the apprehension, and what was the thing that got you over that apprehension?
Well, the apprehension was the obvious. I had spent my entire life working for a paycheck, and I could depend on that paycheck, and having health benefits. I never really had to look at them because I was fortunately healthy, but I had insurance. I never really thought about that, and I just thought that was the way until I got to know John Assaraf. And we started having lunch, and we get to know each other. This is before The Secret came out. He was just a guy that I was introduced to.
Wow.
We clicked, and we'd go have a burger every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And he started getting into my head about financial freedom and financial independence and the feeling of being able to create there is no income ceiling when you're a business owner. And he said, you're doing, and I was doing okay. I had a good life, made good money with Tony. And he said, but you're always going to be capped. There's always going to be somebody that's going to pay you just enough. And that's how most employers are. Nobody's notorious for overpaying people, right? And right. Tony's a smart guy, and he just kind of helped me understand the mindset and the way of being an entrepreneur and having the confidence to say, I can stand on my own 2 feet. I can figure this out, because there's a lot to figure out when you make that move. Just banking and finance and expense tracking and bookkeeping, taxes, S Corp, C Corp, LLC, note. I mean, there's so many things to figure out, and I had so many moments of going, you know what? I'm just going to go be a VP of sales and find a good company, and I dabble. I mentally dabbled in that a little bit, and then good fortune comes up. I work with John Assaraf. He decides to build a company. He brings me on as a managing partner, and it was a company called One Coach. If you remember One Coach, Bob.
Sure.
Working
that's
with small
right.
business owners.
That's when I met John.
Yep. So
I came to his office and did an interview with him. Yeah.
And we were going like gangbusters. John's got great content. The small business community was in need. And then 2008 hits, and we get hit with the buzzsaw of the recession. And right at that time, I'd realized that, I just spent, 12 years at Gateway and 3.5 years with Tony, a large company, so let's just say all of my professional career was working with big companies. And, working with small companies requires a different skill set, right?
Absolutely.
And I thought, I've got all this training in metrics and leadership and management, all the jobs I had and roles I'd had at Gateway. And out of the blue, I reached out to Chet Holmes. Chet Holmes, if you know that name, some do. And if not, he wrote a book in 2007 called The Ultimate Sales Machine. One of the very, very, very best sales books, in my opinion, and being an avid reader, I would say one of the best sales books ever written by Chet Holmes. Wow. And I reached out to him. I'd met him through Tony, and he happened to pick me up, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you called. Can't believe you called right now." He said, "I just got a phone call from a big company in Mexico. They want me to consult them. I don't have time." He goes, "You work with big companies?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, Great. Join the call on Thursday. And it was literally a guy had called in that read his book and heard a radio spot that ran a literal, legit $970 million company, a home building company in Mexico. And Chet introduced me as El Presidente of his consulting division. And after the call, I'm like, who's all in this division? He goes, just you.
Just you.
Good luck. And
Love it.
it just as luck, it's one of those, then you go back to, why did I pick up the phone and call him in that moment? I remember it was 12:57 in the afternoon. Why did he pick me up? Now, it's a busy guy that doesn't usually pick up phone calls from numbers and maybe he recognized my number. I don't know. Right. And what is the oddity of the timing of me to call him at about 1:00 when that morning a CEO of a large, almost $1 billion company out of Mexico had called in saying, I want to hire Chet Holmes. And we get on the call on Thursday, and Chet literally, I wish I would have recorded this, closed a giant consulting deal in 1 hour. At the end of it, the owner goes, where do I send papers? Wow. Chet called me up and said, congratulations, you got your first customer.
Wow, that's impressive. That's
exciting. How do you explain timing, random occurrences, coincidence?
Right.
What compelled me to make the call? When you call somebody that's, famous or micro famous, there's a little edge about making that call. Oh, they're too busy. Sure. I don't want to bother them. Are they even going to talk to me? But I made the call. He picked up. It just so happened, I could have called him any day. I could have called him Friday before the Monday. Right. And he would have said, yeah, I'll keep you in mind.
Yep.
Timing is everything. But in the middle of that, if there's a lesson, is I took the action. I made the call.
Yeah, that's the key. I agree, man. And that trajectory from there, and then you're doing, you wrote this book, The Sales Edge, right? Yep. And you've got it out there. So where can people get The Sales Edge?
Oh, I've got a landing page for a free chapter. You can test drive it and just read the free chapter at minimum. If you want to buy the book, great. I mean, as anybody knows who's published a book, I think a book makes you about $2. So I'm not doing this for money.
So would they go to Amazon or do they just go to your site to get the book?
Yeah, go to www, obviously, thesalesedge.co. Not .com. I couldn't, somebody already owned that. Thesalesedge.co. And you just put in your name, your email, boom, and you'll instantly have a chapter. It's my favorite chapter. And I think probably one of the most compelling chapters, which is, how to run a great meeting. So many of you, especially if you're entrepreneurs, you do all your work to get that consult. That 30-minute, let's get on a call, let's meet and greet, and let's see if my services match what you need, or let me explain what I'm going to do. If you're in business, you do this all the time, and all of you should be doing it via Zoom in this forum. Yeah. But very few people, if I sit down and say, walk me through your plan for the meeting. What's your roadmap? Where do you want to get to? What are the whole premise of the chapter is this. People will judge you more by the level and quality of the questions you ask than they will based on your ability to explain your product.
Amen. So I'm going to open this up for questions. So those of you guys that are here in the Zoom room, you have questions, raise your hand, and then we'll unmute you. Yeah, you guys can come on. Well, actually, Ruth, go right ahead then. Ask your question.
I was just saying hi, but so I have a question, but before I ask my question, earlier I was riding my bike, listening to your videos, getting to know you, as you say.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I had a sudden realization, and it was very exciting. So you were talking about being a leader in your industry and how to strategize about sales. And I talked to my parents. I just learned that I'm a 6-month-old, that I was born when I was 6 months old. Not 6 months old. I'm sorry. English was my second language. Anyway, I was premature. So, and you were talking about something, and it triggered something in my brain to think that I'm always prematurely doing stuff. And anyway, one day, hopefully I'll have the opportunity to share more in depth about that. I just wanted to share that while you were talking, I realized that I'm always doing things prematurely.
Ahead of
And I
time,
was
yeah.
very worried about that. But earlier listening to you, I thought, hey, I was born premature. I started elementary school at 3 years old. I went to university when I was only 13 years old.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
it should be okay.
Okay.
Anyway, my question, you were talking about the 7 magic words. And this is something I do often with some people. Does it make any difference when you call someone by first name versus their last name? Because you were saying to call, you know, people by their first name. Does
Yes.
it make any difference?
To me, it does. And man, you really sparked a blast from the past. That was my very first video I ever put on YouTube. I'm going to go check that out again. I don't even,
great.
that was 2007. So that would have been 13 years ago. Fewer wrinkles and more hair, I think, is probably the best way to describe that. But here's the thing about somebody's first name. It's the single word they've heard the most of all words in their lifetime. It's their first name and then the word you. So if you just understand those two patterns and not obtrusely, but or not overly, but be conscious of the fact that those are the two words that people have heard the most in their life. So if you are speaking with somebody and you're using the you frame, how about you? What do you think? What are your opinions of, John? Right? It deepens the level of rapport. Now some people take these techniques and overuse them, and then it becomes just annoying. So if you weave that into the tapestry of your conversations and practice conscious communication, meaning you've gone through the repetition so much of, conscious communication is, for a company, what I tell them is the salespeople is like, how many objections you get? And they say, we get hundreds. Okay, let's name them all. And there's usually about, 10. And then we can chunk them. And there's usually about 4. And then if we know that price, I'm still thinking about it, I'm looking at a competitor, or not now, are the common objections, then let's role play and write out the very best responses. And then let's practice them like crazy until, we play a game called Hot Potato. And if it was a ball or a beanbag, and I'd throw it to a seller and say, price is too high. What do you say? And they're expected to get that. Then they throw the beanbag to somebody else and say, we're shopping with competitor A. What do you say to that? And
love it.
That's a example of conscious communication, that you study the best patterns, you work to wire your own nervous system so you use them when you speak, when you write, when you respond. Very powerful stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm working on that, on my communication skills.
Thank you. Thanks for reminding me of that video. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
What is it? 7 magic words of success.
It's an honor to speak to you, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
This is awesome.
All
this
right,
technology is amazing. Like, where are you at, Ruth?
It's awesome. Oh, sorry, I muted her. Hold on.
Where do you live, Ruth?
I live here in San Diego.
Okay, so you're near me. I'm just like, there's people all over the world on this thing. It's crazy.
Okay, we have several other people, so let me get to them really quick. But I do want to comment on our Facebook. We have our brother Roberto Monaco watching us on Facebook. He says Gino boy, and then he says my brothers. So
get him on here. I got some good stories I can tell about Roberto Monaco.
Yeah, that would be great. He would have to have the Zoom link to be able to get on. I'd bring him on, man. I would definitely bring him on. So we've got a lot of people watching on Facebook. So some great comments. But let's see, Weldon. Weldon is a great guy, and he's kind of in that mix where we were just talking about where you were with Tony. Things were going well. Why leave? And he's been in a career for 30 years, I think, something like that. And he's now trying to wrestle on wins and exit. So let me bring him up, and let's go. Weldon, there you are. Weldon, go ahead and come on camera. There he is.
There we go.
What's up, Weldon?
How are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. I'm here with you.
Kind of like a little bit what Bob was saying, in that back in the 90s, we must actually be somewhat close in age, I think, based on stuff you were talking about, because I still have the Tony Robbins First the Power tapes and all that stuff in a closet somewhere. And I put in the work back in the early 90s to help me get started building a business. And now 31 years later, I'm trying to reinvent myself. I'm looking for, I have a strong need to be different. Don't necessarily want to do the same thing everybody else is doing right now. And so where do you find that next place to go to? You know, I've always strived to make sure that I've worked on my mindset and continue to grow that way, but it's always been doing the same thing. So now I want to pivot and move on to something else. And I'm just looking for the next thing to go do. How do you get ahead of the curve is, I guess, my actual question.
Yeah.
Okay. So for Weldon, it's pivoting. It's what is the next thing? Here's what I'd say is, and this sounds so wishy-washy, but my gosh, it's so true is, you know, what do you love to do? What's not work for you? And I'll give you a good example is, you know, I mentioned I've been, you know, trying to walk and run a little bit and listen to really powerful stuff. And I realized that I'd done a bunch of webinars like these over the last 4 weeks, and I've interviewed some, you know, pretty powerful people, and, you know, from Gene Simmons at KISS to Super Bowl champions to company founders to motivational experts and John Assaraf. And I'm like, you know, I wonder what are the common patterns that I heard those people talk about? And I started kind of writing it out on my board. And there were kind of 5 keys: mindset, skill set, action set, habit set, and result set. And I just kind of started taking snippets of what they said. And I'm like, I got some new content here. So I called up a couple of my old clients that have paid me, they've gotten their money's worth. You know, we parted, you know, consulting relationships, like coaching relationships. You know, you'll run your course and then, you know, both parties will move on. And I just said, hey, I've got some new content. I need a live audience. You guys want to get on? And this is a European company. So we did that call this morning at 9, and I was just as happy as could be. So what it told me was, and I didn't get paid anything for that, but the love of assimilating content, interpreting it, finding patterns in it, and being able to reproduce it for a new audience is there. That's when you know you're doing something you love, when you do it for free. I literally today did it for free. And
wow.
That's, you know, what happens is when you do these things that you love and you keep doing them again and again and again, and with enough repetition, you get better.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much this is helping you, Weldon, but it's like, think about the things you love to do. And by the way, as you're thinking about those things, then you can start writing. You can use Insta, Facebook, LinkedIn, depending on your audience, right?
Right.
We're different mental personas when we go to Instagram than we are when we go to LinkedIn.
Amen.
So post the articles that make sense to the audience that typically goes to those channels, and get active. And I try to do at least one thing on all 3 channels every single day. And I'm not like some people do it every hour, right? It's just not who I am. I'm not knocking them and I'm not judging them, but something out there to keep my name relevant, something where I think, what could be something people are struggling with right now? What's the inspiration they need? What can I show them, you know, what we're doing in the backyard to stay relevant? But everybody's got that thing they're really good at. Now, what do I see coming out of this in the restart? Some things that are front of mind as things like weight loss. I think I know I need to do something.
Right.
Speak for myself, but I don't think I'm alone. I think personal coaching is another. It always has been huge. I think it's going to be even more huge. I think people deciding to pay for and purchase programs in specific skill sets is only going to continue to go up, because immersion events where we go to the arena and we're with a few thousand people or even 50 or 100 people, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the future of that. Amen. What there's not uncertainty in is the number of people that love personal development, that want to keep sharpening their own saw. I don't ever see that going away.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. I agree.
Well said.
The other thing I'll mention is that
helpful?
don't put the pressure on yourself, Weldon, that you've got to write the next best Tony Robbins Unlimited Power book, right? Don't do it in comparison. What I have found is that the world is a giant, giant, giant place. And, my little niche of teaching companies how to hunt and win big deals is a huge world. And what I found was, as a sales trainer by nature, it's what I love to do. What I have found is that there's a lot of sales trainers out there. There's no shortage of people teaching rapport and questions and closing and handling objections. But I started looking in the space for what some people would call the white space. Where are something in this genre, but there's not a lot of people there that I can speak to because of experience. And for me, it was helping mid-sized deals take on the Goliaths of their industry, helping the number 13 accounting firm win deals against the big 4 accounting firms. That's where I got my niche. And there were very few players in that spot teaching mid-sized companies how to win the multi-million-dollar deals. And that ended up being the core of my book. And that's what companies come to me now. Now I've got this micro niche, but it's a $1 billion micro niche. Right. I don't make $1 billion. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of business to be gotten there.
All right.
You got to find that.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Good.
for sharing.
Okay. All right. Let's see who else has their hand up. We only got maybe a couple more questions. But Joe Ingram, I saw that you were on Facebook and then you came over here. So did you have a question?
Hey, my new LinkedIn buddy.
Your LinkedIn buddy. Ah, there's Joe. Okay.
Audio.
Dean, how are you? Good to see you again. Have you gone out and taught Madison how to throw a Frisbee yet?
We have not returned back to the park where I was trying to teach my 17-year-old how to throw a Frisbee, and I decided to record her, and she could not have had a worse throw. So that's gotten a lot of fodder on her Instagram page.
Fantastic. And then
you went off camera. You know that, right?
It says Bob has turned off my camera.
I didn't turn off yours.
Yeah, it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. He doesn't.
All right, I apologize. Maybe I did.
There
you go.
There he is. Look at that stud.
Because there's a lot of pretty right now across the top.
Yeah,
and I think that
it was too much pretty.
Maybe Zoom or Facebook was like, no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
So you said you're listening to the same audio that's 4 hours every day. What does Gene's getting ready to go to bed? What does it look like? Is there something you're doing that's making sure everything that you learned today stuck? Is there something that goes along with just filling during the day?
Well, there's the intention, which, of the last 3 weeks is not, I haven't been 1,000% disciplined to this. The intention is I set an appointment for myself at 10 p.m. every night. So like on my phone. And, when you have an appointment come up and it shows whatever, and it's an appointment that says, I have a liter of bottle. So I have a liter bottle that I fill my water so I can drink the water when I wake up, read for 15 minutes, pray, and tell Jennifer that I love her. And I get this reminder. Now, am I perfect at that? No. When I'm in heavy discipline modes, absolutely. Because that means 10 o'clock, I'm in bed, we're winding down. I get a little bit of bread for the head, read something positive. I have a Kindle right by my bed. That's what I do. I'm always working to get even better. But that's what's worked for me. Now, I haven't been perfect at it. I got to make sure and add that piece. But
fantastic.
Sometimes
I get to the end of the day and I'm just go until you pass out is where it is. I'm like, I know there's got to be a better way to Gene's doing it, because Gene, you look younger than you did 5 years ago. So
I am pretty tan now that I see this video. Hey,
yes.
Joe, I thought of you Monday night. We went to the Hat. Have you been to that pastrami?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Place in Irvine?
Yes. We still have to do the cut as soon as they allow us to go out and
that's right, that restaurant. I am totally down for that.
Yes.
But yeah, the disciplines, I think I'm not afraid to admit it. I've found myself watching a lot more news. I want to know what's going on. I've found a lot more pontificating. I don't think any of us are used to having so much time on our hands. So I'm doing a lot of proactive reach out, being exceptionally disciplined about posting. I got my YouTube channel up. You can go check out. I got a ton of really great videos and interviews on YouTube. It's all free. I mean, if you want to watch snippets of content and me interviewing Gene Simmons or me interviewing Grant Cardone, Damon John, Dean Graziosi, I was fortunate enough to be able to sit down with these guys and pick their brain on what they're doing to, be at the very, very top of the game. So those videos and I'm loading 2 videos every day on this YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Every kid that I have in my house does not watch Netflix. They certainly don't want to watch TV, but they will look at YouTube all day, which tells me they're going to be customers in 10 years.
That's right.
True that.
All right. We have 2 more questions. You got yours, Joe? You good?
I'm great. Thank you, Gene.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
Joe Ingram.
Absolutely, brother. Joe Ingram. Let's see. Okay, we got one from Michelle. Michelle says she can't be on camera or on mic. She said, what's the first thing Gene would suggest for 25-year-old young adults starting out in sales?
First of all, I didn't want to take a shower today either, but I had to because of Bob and this video thing. But anyway, I had to take my hat off and actually put some gel in the hair. Oh, for 25-year-old, first of all, 2 things. One is go to a goal setting workshop. And I'm not talking about a 5-minute YouTube video. There are plenty of people. I don't even know if Bob offers this or not, but go through a real goal setting workshop. Now, we can't go to a seminar right now, but you can certainly do it online. But get the mindset piece figured out. Secondly is pick somebody to start studying the game of selling with, like an author. There's a lot of great ones out there. Of course, I'm in favor of my book, but my book's all about try to hunting and win the great big deals. But become a student.
Well, it's a sales edge and.
What's that?
Sales Edge is the book to get, and there's other books.
And I would say Chet Holmes, Ultimate Sales Machine. I would say anything with Zig Ziglar. Now, that's some old school stuff, but you'll find some of these basics still remain. The other greatest book on my shelf is the 3rd book I ever read in my life, called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. But pick any of them and become a student. Here's the piece that you've got to get. Sales as a profession, selling is the highest paid hard work there is. It's also the lowest paid easy work there is. Meaning, if you get good at selling, which means hunting new business, getting new clients, you will have a job or your own company for the rest of your life. That's one of the most sought after, yet still to this day, rarest skill sets there is. Right? And it's a skill set. It's like anything else. It's like playing chess. It's like a video game. It's like figuring out Monopoly. Once you understand the rules and do it enough, you tend to get good at it.
There you go. Love it. Flo, we'll wrap up with Flo. Flo, go ahead and bring yourself on.
Hi, Gene.
Hey, Flo.
Great. Thank you so much. When you said people will judge you more on the questions you ask than the products you sell, how do you develop your questions?
Well, it's outlined in my book, the Sales Edge, and that's what that chapter walks through. So I'll give you a short story. When I was at Gateway, I rose to, I was the golden boy. And then we decided to start going after businesses. Remember, Gateway sold computers to your house, right? Half the people here had a Gateway in their home when they grew up.
Yep, I had one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a phenom.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to sell to business. I decided to say, look, I think I know everything about sales. I'll go out into the field. Now, selling over the phone is wildly different than putting on a suit and going into a boardroom, trying to convince IT people to switch from the business computers of IBM and Compaq and Hewlett-Packard to this home computer company. And that's how they looked at it. But the short story is within 6 months, I thought I was going to go and just slay it when I went out in the field. after 6 months, I was at the very bottom of the list. And I was like, I got that phone call that said, hey, we need to get something going here, or we got to make other decisions. I remember those are the words that this lady told me. And I didn't know what to do. I thought I was doing everything, but hunting and, sending letters and making phone calls and trying to find contacts in 1997 was a lot different than it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the library the bookstore, and I bought 2 books. One was called Selling to Veto, how to veto, standing for very important top officers. And the second one was something called Spin Selling. And Spin Selling went on to be one of the best-selling sales books for years and years and years, and it still sells well. Spin was about the art of questioning. That's where I first learned this. And what Neil Rackham said was, he was a social researcher, and he studied salespeople and what did the best one do that the other ones didn't. The best ones asked questions, and it wasn't just the questions; it was the flow and the rhythm of the questions. And he invented this program called SPIN, which stood for understand the situation, establish the problem, establish the implications of the problem. What is this problem costing you? And create a need payoff situation. If I'm able to do A, would you be willing to sign the paperwork, move forward, whatever? And that was the first time that, it's no secret that we have to ask questions, but the first time I had a roadmap, and I started using that roadmap, and everything began to change from that moment. Because I got good through repetition at being able to make phone calls, talk to gatekeepers and admins, and get my way into an appointment. But appointments weren't moving into the second appointment and all that other stuff. Started using Spin, had some really good results. But what I found was I go from the bottom towards the top. I start getting some deals in. But what I found is that there's oftentimes as a seller that we're reaching out to somebody and we say, well, tell me about the problems you're experiencing. And people will say, we're good. I'm good. Everybody had computers in those days. Everybody's got a computer. They seem to work. Yeah, we have some glitches, but Compaq takes care of us, whatever. And I realized that there was a big banking company that, while they didn't believe they had problems with technology, one of the things I witnessed was that every time they got a big shipment of computers in, all their technicians had to leave what they were doing, the techs, when they're fixing keyboards and printers and all that stuff in those days, they'd have to go down to the receiving dock, unbox all the computers, load the company software, and then rebox the computers, and then they would ship them out to the bank branches that were opening. I'm like, why do you do it this way? And they said, well, we've always done it that way. We got to put our software on, and it's got to be safe and secure, and we got to test it. But it took them about 45 minutes per machine. And so because they had learned how to do it that way, they didn't see a problem with that. What I knew I could do is, instead of shipping the computers to their headquarters in Kansas City and them loading the software, I said, well, I can have this software loaded when we actually build the computer. And they'd never heard of that. And we did a test, and where we built computers in those days was in North Sioux City, South Dakota. It was 4 hours away from Kansas City. And we ran a test, and it worked great. We loaded the software on the hard drive, and everything worked flawlessly. Therefore, I cut out all that time that they were spending loading the software. They didn't know they had a problem, but I showed them how to do something even better that saved them time, saved them money, created more happiness. And I was able to quantify it. And we ended up winning that bank deal, not because they had a problem, but because I showed them an even better way to do what they were doing that focused on money, risk, and time. And that became, at that time, one of, if not the biggest deal in the history of the company. I go from, a year earlier, almost getting fired, to a year later, getting all the awards, and then the VP coming and saying, hey, can you go document what you did and teach everybody else how to do that? Right? So EDGE, as opposed to SPIN, is the E stands for you've got to educate yourself on the person or the company you're talking to. And with social media, you can find out so much about somebody while you're at the stoplight on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Google, or a company, or leaders in the company, or trends in the company. You can find that out in a heartbeat. You got to thoroughly educate yourself. Secondly, you got to develop a gap. So rather than just focusing on what problems are you experiencing, You got to understand, is there, if somebody says we're good and said, well, could it be even better? What would even better look like?
Right.
Notice I use the word even better. If I said, well, I can make you better, you might be going, screw you, I'm fine. Who are you to say you can make me better? But I said, would you agree that in this area that you could, is it possible for you to be even better? Well, yeah, we can always be even better. Just language patterns are so important. So you educate yourself, you develop a gap, and then the G in EDGE stands for greater gap. Now, this is a technique that I learned in studying NLP, and Bob, with Wes, I mean, we geeked out on all that Bandler and all that stuff, right? We geeked out on all that stuff, but there's a law in NLP, or I don't know if it was invented there, but this is where I heard it on, called the law of future pacing. Help people see, feel, and experience the future. So I can help people. I could just, in creating a greater gap. And what's it going to mean in 12 months if you don't get this right? What's it going to mean in 6 months if you've doubled sales? I would get into conversations with companies. I'd say, well, I don't know if I can take you on because I need to have certainty that if we grow this thing, that you're going to be able to handle building the product. That's a future pace question. Well, yeah, if we sell it, we'll do, okay, I need to have certainty that you're going to have supply chain that's going to be able to handle, because if we raise, this by 30% or 40% or 20%, which is likely to happen, then last thing I can future pace people, or I could say, look, if you don't change anything and the competition continues to get more aggressive, where do you see yourself in 6 months? So you can future pace a pain, you can future pace pleasure. And then the last E is the emotional connection. Rather than use what Spin taught was kind of a quid pro quo. If I'm able to help you solve A, would you be willing to do B? Right? Which was more effective in the 90s, but it's less effective now. What's less effective now are things like tie down. Sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, you hear that, we like, oh, Jesus, stop doing that.
Right.
Right? It's less effective these days.
Right.
But if I can say, Flo, I was working with somebody just like you that had some of the same situations. What they did was took action, did the program, implemented A, B, and C. And today now they're achieving whatever that goal is. So if I can tell a good, true story of somebody or something or a company similar to my audience, and that story includes that audience experiencing the problem, a similar problem or similar situation, taking action and getting a desired result. This is where when you read things about story selling, and everybody goes, oh yeah, that's so good, but where do you learn to weave the tapestry of a good story? Right? So that's what it is. And if you go to the salesedge.co, that this whole edge system is outlined, and it's so good. And I give full acknowledgement to Spin. Spin is what taught me, the basics, but I found what I think is an even better way. That's how I would describe it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, guys, man, he's got so much wisdom. He's forgotten more than most people know about sales. So he's definitely the go-to guy for that. I want you to go to his website, follow up with him, get his book, subscribe to anything he's doing. And I would say, hands down, you will get way more than your money's worth in anything I've ever seen him do. So, and
YouTube, don't forget, I'm getting big on YouTube. I'm going to do what I can on YouTube, man. I
check it out.
Underestimated YouTube, but I'm going to housing. I mean, if you just want for that gal that's getting started in sales, just go watch the videos I'm putting up there, and it's awesome. Good stuff. I'm not trying to put you into a funnel. I just
it's
my life commitment to.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being put in a funnel if the funnel is where you need to be, right?
Yeah, good point.
I'm all good with funnels. So guys, make that connection. You have access. You're part of the Next Level by Association membership. He'll be part of the group. You guys can interact with him. Go to his website. Get involved in everything he's doing. If you guys are watching on YouTube on Facebook, just know that members have access to the Zoom. Members have access to the ability to ask questions. Members have access to be a part of the group and stay connected to the guest of honors as well as the others in the group. So if you are not a member of Next Level by Association, I'm going to click the link here in Facebook. That's where you can sign up. I'll tell you how it works. It's a 12-month commitment. It's $50 a month, normally $100 a month, $50 a month, and you belong to the group. You're party to the conversation, and guys, it's amazing. We've had people like Gene, we've had Jarek, we've had Les Brown, we've had Keith Ferrazzi, we've had all these people that come through the last 10 years. We've been doing this live once a month in Orange County, California, and then now we're doing it once a week virtually, just like this. So I invite you guys to check it out, become a part. Go to nextlevelbyassociation.com, and you can find the information there as well. That being said, guys, Gene, man, thank you so much, my friend. I love you, and I'm just so grateful for you in my life and in the world today. So I appreciate you.
Totally awesome. I was looking at my clock. I'm like, that was a long 20-minute interview. It's like an hour and 20. Oh my God. I hope everybody stuck around. I hope I didn't blow your brains out here with too much content. I'm excited about this stuff. And it's not, awesome. You're doing something you love when, you do it without getting paid. Now, the ironic thing is you get really good at it, you start getting paid very well too. So,
Amen. Well, I appreciate you and your influence on my life, and I'm very grateful for our friendship.
Thanks, everybody. God bless.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good job, Ruth. Joe.
Thanks. Have a good one, everybody.
So cool.